All right, everyone. I thought I would weigh in on the Nick Fuentes, Ben Shapiro struggle or threatening action that occurred the other day, because I mean, people are still talking about it. This is, by the way, a win for Fuentes in that token. Attention is good when you know you're the less well-known individual in a dust-up like this. You're elevating your own name. The Groyp'd thing is still very much in vogue. Attempts to suppress it by censorship don't seem to have worked too well. Let's look at this logically. I pointed out the other day when this happened. What happened? Link in the description. You can watch it for yourself. Nick Fuentes and his entourage of Groypers saw Ben Shapiro with his family across the street. And I guess this was outside of a political event Fuentes had been banned from. And so he went over to him to sort of say hi and, you know, why are you ignoring me? You refuse to debate me. You refuse to have me at an event. Basically, what's your problem? And people exploded in a rage. Oh my God, it's terrible optics. Like people, well-meaning people on the right said it's bad optics. But can I just interject something here? Do you honestly think that someone who's on the left or the center right or whatever, they're not already like a Shapiro fan? Like they're not wearing the sweater vest like you do politically, so to speak? Do you think that anyone on the left said, oh, well, evil Nazi Nick Fuentes looked terrible, so therefore by default Ben Shapiro's an okay guy? They think Ben Shapiro's a Nazi. They've called him a Nazi. You're not changing anybody's minds. Ben Shapiro doesn't win any brownie points from people that didn't already like him by just walking away. So I don't know what optically matters. And as for Nick Fuentes, again, a lot of people just think he's a fanatic or whatever. I don't, because, you know, you look at what he's actually saying, you look at what he actually does, much of it is infotainment. It's interesting. It's fun to watch. This was funny to see. It's just, the whole situation is hilarious. Nick Fuentes and Ben Shapiro accidentally meeting each other, and then it trends on Twitter is funny. This was not a threatening engagement. The idea that approaching another person, you're not getting in their face, you're not impeding their movement, you're not threatening them in any way, you're not brandishing weapons, you're not doing anything illegal. The idea that in the full open view of the public, recorded by 5 or 6 different cameras, you going up to a person and saying 3 or 4 sentences to them while following them for a quarter of a block constitutes harassment or constitutes the threat is wrong. Clearly it doesn't. He's not going to get in any trouble. You can do that. Ben Shapiro never told him back off. Ben Shapiro never even responded to him. The only person in the group that responded to him was a political passerby who said that Fuentes was just trying to get attention because he didn't matter or something like that. I would argue that the response to this particular clip sort of undermines that particular argument because he was literally trending worldwide on Twitter for several hours, but be that as it may, this isn't harassment. I put myself in Ben Shapiro's shoes, or you know, as a political commentator myself. Let's say that some Groyper walks out of the woods tomorrow when I'm out for a walk, you know, harvesting icicles from my garden, and starts calling me a cuck. Oh, you're a cuck because, you know, you don't ramble about the JQ endlessly or something. I'll turn my back to them and walk away. I'm not worried about them assaulting me. But if they have pink hair and they're calling me a Nazi, oh, you can bet I'm not turning around. I will stand my ground, especially if I've got my family with me. And I think it would have been different. If Shapiro had been accosted by 3 or 4 people in Karl Marx t-shirts rambling about how he's a far-right extremist and the next Hitler, he probably would have acted differently. His actions do not suggest to me on this recording that he felt threatened by Fuentes. And why would he? Has Nick Fuentes ever assaulted anyone? Has his group ever assaulted anyone? No. Leftists do all the time. Optics my ass. Yeah, Nick Fuentes wearing his leisure suit. He goes up to a person and says 3 or 4 sentences to them. This is terrible optics. Dude, the reason why it trended in the first place is that all the Shapiroites started chastising him, pretending like optics matter to the left, pretending like the average person doesn't already think Ben Shapiro is far right. They already dislike you. You're not winning brownie points by saying, look, here's the contrast of me, the sweater vest neoconservative, versus this evil YouTuber fanatic over here. You're not winning anything. By the way, Ben Shapiro, people saying, well, he's like out with his family and stuff like that. I don't care. Ben Shapiro, at the end of the day, is a war-loving, pro-censorship fanatic, an extreme authoritarian, everything wrong with the conservative movement, which is the reason I'm not a conservative. I wouldn't be under the Fuentes-ites sort of Groyp'd thing either, because I'm not moralistic, but if ever there was a group that had more actual doctrinal power within the right as a sort of hegemonic force, Fuentes and his people aren't that group. It's Shapiro and groups like that, the Coulters of the world, people like Sean Hannity. And while you may overlap with them, I may say, okay, when you're rambling about the pink-haired crowd or going after political correctness, I fundamentally agree with them. It's just a broken clock situation. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Ben Shapiro can barely find a country he doesn't want to bomb some more to fix foreign policy problems. I'm sorry, but I don't really respect that platform. I see that as, the idea that going up and shouting at someone for 30 seconds while they're out with their family, the idea that that's worse than supporting genocide, which is basically what Shapiro's doing, I'm thinking this is an apples to oranges comparison. I'm thinking that there is no real way to reconcile these two things. No, and it's not, by the way, this isn't a take a side sort of situation either. This is just a discrete event that I'm reacting to. I'm not a Groyper. I'm not a fan of the movement, McHugh, Jesus sort of stuff. Not really. But that being said, the idea of siding with Shapiro in this situation, when no real grievous harm has been done. He's walking with his family, I understand that, but he wasn't impeded. He wasn't attacked. He wasn't threatened. Nobody said anything. Nobody was swearing in front of his kids. Nobody said, oh, we're going to string you up. Nobody said to the gallows. Nobody did anything particularly wrong. Certainly nothing illegal. Come on. It's funny. It's more than anything, this is just a dramatic event, which is funny. This is sort of the real-world participation populist politics of the day. This is sort of an extension of the internet, is it not? Is this not basically like a YouTube comment section come to life? I find it hilarious. I probably wouldn't have chosen to go up to Ben Shapiro. If I did, I just would have been like, peace out, get a selfie, and then I would have put a tweet out of it. But I mean, no, there's nothing particularly wrong there. People flipping out about it, pretending like, oh my god, my optics, this is why the left wins. What are you talking about, dude? Yeah, people on the left will vote for Ben Shapiro's candidate if only he turns his back to Nick Fuentes. They're going to become sweater-wearing Ronald Reagan-style neocons. They're going to embrace free marketeering. It's not going to happen, dude. I don't know what kind of fucking delusions these people are having, but some of them seem to believe that if the old right, which is what it is at this point, just is more astute, if we're more solemn, if we act more dignified, all of a sudden, we win. That's not how it works within politics. Your strategies suck. They've lost over and over consistently for decades now, so I don't know what you're trying to retain. What are you trying to conserve, dude? Not your own political movements, that's for sure. Like it or not, Fuentes and people like him represent an aspect of the new right. It's a minority movement within the right, but it's the more dynamic one. It's kind of like the offshoot of the left with the AOC types, except that some of the platforms there are actually totally normal. Dude, in some ways, quick secret, the Fuentes conservatives are kind of like if Ronald Reagan had actually kept his campaign promises. They're not extremists. Most of the views that you have there are not fanatic. You have to be a postmodernist in order to believe them fanatic. You have to believe that the advents of the far left after the 90s should be enshrined and that they're universally all-encompassingly good in order to find any real fault with some of those platforms. Again, moralism and maybe nativism aside, other than that, there's not a whole lot to pick through. And the idea that Fuentes is going to attack anybody, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think that Fuentes has it in him to bike lock another person. I think Shapiro would have acted differently if this was a group of communists. That's about all. Peace out.